So in this video, I'm going to be doing an in-depth sort of video talking you through question 1B of my OCR A level English language paper 1, which I sat in 2023. If you'd like to see question 1A, I did a video on that earlier, and you can head over to my channel to see that particular video. Now, overall, I achieved an A star for this particular question for 1B. I got 9 out of 10. And I think I forgot to mention in my previous video for question 1A, I also got 9 out of 10. So overall for question 1, I scored 18 out of 20. Now, in terms of context, because at the time I'm filming this video, I don't think the resource booklet for this particular paper has been released yet by OCR. So just in terms of context, the text that we were given was a text about London, and it was about sort of the things that you can get up to in the city of London, and it was essentially a non-fiction text. Now, without further ado, I'm just going to get into reading you through my sort of response and just explaining a little bit about how to sort of basically maximise the marks that you can get in exams. So throughout the text, the writer uses a pattern of left-branching multi-clausal sentences like, when it comes to getting around London, but whether you want to save some cash and packed full of highlights. The reason for using this pattern of left-branching sentences is so that the writer can foreground with information that is most culturally relevant. For example, transport and expenses have traditionally been an issue for Londoners. So by foregrounding these issues, Time Out sets itself apart from other magazines who may provide tone-deaf advice, which many people may not be able to afford. Since it's a free magazine, it's reasonable that the audience may be large and could compose of people from all socioeconomic backgrounds. So yes, the piece was written by Time Out, and again, you'll get a little bit of context that'll tell you about essentially the magazine, and in this case, the context that we were given was the fact that it was a free magazine. Now, you want to always be kind of triangulating your response AO1, AO3. So with AO1, it's obviously that precise linguistic sort of information. So I've talked about left-branching multi-clausal sentences, and then AO3 is the context. And in this case, the context, I've linked it back to the fact that obviously it's a free magazine, it's going to have a wide population. London is an expensive city. So it's kind of always making sure AO1 and AO3 are very interlinked. You kind of want to have a good distribution of the two. In terms of the quotes that I've used here, so I've used a lot of quotes here. And it's really important to sort of make sure that you do that to show that you're successfully able to identify and pick out the features. So if, for example, I've talked about left-branching multi-clausal sentences, and the examiner wants to see that I actually am able to correctly identify examples of those. So moving on, I've said, additionally, the writer uses a pattern of imperative sentences like, here's our pick of great, take a... Oh, I can't actually see that because it's been covered by the examiner's cross, but take something along and head northwards. Whilst the imperative sentences are unmitigated, they don't come across as forceful, but as persuasive instead. This may be because it's a common genre convention of guides like this to use imperative sentences in order to persuade their audience to try out some of the suggested activities. Notably, the writer also uses conditional sentences like, if you're eyeing this up, take it. The use of the conditional sentences softens the command and adds an element of choice. It also allows the text to be relevant to a wider online audience, since some people may not want to go alone. So obviously over here, what I've done is I've talked about it's really good sometimes if you're talking about genre conventions. So again, I'm kind of thinking about the bigger picture. I'm not just, one of the things that you want to really avoid feature spotting. You want to avoid saying, okay, I've seen the writer has used lists here, the writer has used a comma here, the writer has done repetition, anaphora. You want to avoid feature spotting. What you want to see is a pattern, how is a pattern going on, and then, sort of linking that to the bigger picture. So I've gone sort of zoomed out a little bit, and I've thought about the genre convention, and I've talked about the fact, okay, they've used imperatives, but it's not necessarily being used in, for example, if it was a government text, and you were getting a letter about, paying your taxes, the imperatives used in that context would be used in a different tone. It would be received differently by the reader, because the context of production is different, and therefore the context of reception by the reader will also be different. So it's kind of really being perceptive about what the text, getting to the heart of the text and understanding what is the text trying to do. Okay, so moving on. The text uses a range of sentence types, including interrogatives like, fancy whizzing past and getting lost in greenery, as well as fancy more of a challenge. The anaphora alongside the imperative works to entice the reader since it's providing more choice and a wider range of activities for readers who may not be interested in some of the activities listed. The writer also uses a pattern of declaratives alongside the interrogatives, like take a spin along the Thames and packed full of highlights. The London Eye, the Globe, Tate Modern. The use of declarative sentences alongside the asyndetic listing allows the writer to fulfill one of the text's purposes of informing the reader by providing an assured tone and lots of choice. So again, within this paragraph, I've done a lot of sort of AO1, and I've been very specific in terms of the anaphora, the interrogatives, the declaratives. I've talked about the asyndetic listing, so you have to be very specific about the AO1, and you always have to back it up. You always have to show an example of that in the text. And then obviously I've gone on then to talk about what is the purpose of the text. One of the text's purposes is informing. So you want to bring in genre, audience, purpose. What is the genre of this text? Who is the intended audience? And how is the writer constructing their text to fit that audience? And what is the purpose of the text? And how can you see that purpose coming through in the writer's writing, essentially? To add to the informal register, the writer makes use of the hyphenated sentences like, or if things get complicated, race to the end, first to the steps of wins, as well as minor sentences like, how jealous all your friends will be. The use of the hyphenated sentence to add a quip/joke sustains the humour, even when the writer is describing sights to see, which adds a childlike humour to the text and seeks to restore the reader's interest in places they may already be aware of. So again, when I'm talking about this, it's the context is obviously London is a very famous city, it's very well known, it's been talked about, written to, depicted to death, right? So again, the context here is they want to the author is going to be aware of that, and they want to keep that interest renewed. Why should the reader read about London when they've, heard about it a million times? So again, it's kind of linking back to that context of production. For me personally, I always kind of struggled with question 1B compared to 1A, and traditionally in class, whenever I used to do mocks, I would always score lower. I used to tend to get 8 or 9 out of 10 for 1A, and then I'd always get like 6 or 7 out of 10 for 1B. But obviously in my real A levels, you guys can see I got 9 out of 10 for both. So it just goes to show with practice, actually, you can get a lot better and you can really improve. And it's just about just doing it again and again and again, and really sort of trying to get to the heart of the text and seeing, if there's a pattern of something, for example, if there's a certain tone that there is throughout the text, or if there's a certain sort of message that the writer's trying to get across the text, just seeing how have they consistently and repeatedly used sentences, use structure to essentially fulfill that purpose that you can see, that thread that you can see running throughout the text. So I hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions or any suggestions, please leave them below in the comments. I'll be posting another video soon where I'll be walking through question 2 of this paper, and then I'll also be going through paper 2 as well later on. So stay tuned for that, and have a lovely rest of your day.